Welcome back to the Cedric Black podcast. Welcome back to the second episode. How about that? I'm up to 2 episodes. Last week was my first episode with actually my kickoff episode with the new show. And in today's episode, we're going to pick up where we started in the first episode. And if you're brand new to the show, I'm talking about something that we experience every day, and that's noise. So if this is your first time listening, first of all, I want to thank you for checking me out, taking the time to check out what I have to say. And I hope that once you do leave the show, that you take away something that's valuable to you. And hopefully that you've learned something new today that you may not have known before. And then it helps you out in some way as you move forward and as we continue to move forward. But we're talking about noise. And specifically, I'll be exploring the science behind noise pollution and how it affects us, or how it impacts our mental health, and the way that it makes us feel emotionally, and the impact of I guess we can call that our emotional well-being, if that's a better term. I'm not really used to utilizing that term, but mental health, that's something that we hear often, but our emotional well-being, maybe not as much, but it is the same thing. At least I think it's the same thing, or to me it is the same thing. So even if you think you know everything about sounds around you, or the sounds that encompasses your environment every day, maybe you don't. I hear sounds around me every day, but I never think about them, and I'm willing to bet that you don't as well, because we're surrounded by so many sounds, and we become so used to we just become so used to it. We hear all these sounds so much, and we become so used to it and don't even think about it. So noise. And forgive me for my voice. Every year, and I don't mean to divert away from what I'm talking about, what this episode is about, but every year for the past 20 years, I know this happens to me every year. I'll get a 48-hour bug. I get sick for one good day, and I spend another day or so recovering from it. And that's why my voice sounds so nasally now. I've been working on it before the show started, so hopefully that it could not be a hindrance of the episode. But every year I go through this, and it rotates every year. Sometimes it's right around this time, February, that when the season starts to change, because we have a period here where I live where we have a hard winter for about a week or so, and then things start to lighten up. And if it's not during that time, it's usually in the summertime. I can't explain it, but it happens every year, and every year it rotates from summer to wintertime, was February, right after the hard winter that we have. I just think that's just weird, but that's just me. So I'll get through it. Next week, I hope that I'm fully healed and my voice is back strong the way it normally is. But we'll make it. So if you're new to this episode, we've been talking about noise, and specifically the scientific term noise pollution. So let's back up and revisit just the basics of it, just for first-time listeners. So we're talking about noise pollution. So what exactly is noise pollution? It's really simple. We know what noise is, but just that term, the combination of those two words, noise pollution. It's any excessive or disruptive sound from human activity. And it's any disruptive sounds that are either annoying, that are both annoying and stressful. Okay? So that includes things like traffic noise from the busy roads, the busy streets outside. It could be loud music from a neighbor outside that we can hear. It can be construction noise from construction workers, construction sites. Because if you live nearby a construction site, if you're working in the area or traveling, you're going to hear it. And it could also be an airplane. Where I live, airplanes are constantly flying overhead, and you hear them all the time. So if you're not familiar with the World Health Organization, and they're actually the leading authority on the international public health within the U.S., the United Nations system. And they're the organization that gives us guidance and research and support for health promotions worldwide. So I get a lot of information from them, and because I want to make sure that what I'm speaking about is accurate, and what I'm talking about and bringing to you, it's just not something that I've made up, and it's actually concrete evidence that's supported by the World Health Organization. And I think in short, they're called the WHO, WHO, not like the rock band, the old rock band, the WHO, but not exactly that rock band, but that's just in short for the World Health Organization. So that's what noise pollution is in short. So if you take away something from this episode, take away that. Understand that noise pollution is excessive or disruptive sounds. And they are both annoying and stressful. And how do we know? I think that's a big part of what the show is about, is awareness. How do you know? Because we're just so used to being around it. We've been here. We're surrounded by noise so much in every single way. And some noises just don't bother us anymore because we just tune them. I don't know if we really tune them out, but we've just become so used to it. To me, it's sort of like, for example, if you're in the military, if you're a new soldier going through boot camp, the drill sergeants are normally yelling and screaming in your face all day long. And if you're new to it, if someone is yelling and screaming at you, you probably won't like it. And it will bother you. It may even stress some people out. And I know that it does, because I hear stories about people that quit, give up and go home because they can't take it. But after a while, you get used to it, and it doesn't bother you as much. So that yelling and screaming is noise. But if you become used to it, it doesn't bother you as much. It still exists. But when you tune it out or ignore it, does it really have the same effect? Probably not. It doesn't stress you out as much, but it still exists. But not to you, but other people. It has a different effect. It's something to think about. But one thing that is true is noise affects our brains. And that's actually what the title of the show is about. This episode is how noise pollution affects our brains. So how does it actually affect our brain? Well, for one thing, if it's a loud and irritating sound, they usually trigger something that I've learned. It's a term that I've heard before, but it's called fight or flight. It triggers our fight or flight nervous system, and it releases some type of hormones. It's hormones that trigger our adrenaline, and our heart starts to race. Our heartbeat goes up, and then our thinking process shuts down, because I guess those two things really can't work together. That's because the noise itself, it just hijacks our attention, and it forces us to focus on. It forces us to focus on it, whether we want to or not. So we focus on that loud sound. So I guess sort of like it could be a loud gunshot, or a cannon, like a loud. Just imagine a cannon next to you just goes off. There's a big boom. What do? We freeze up, or some of us, we instantly take off. We don't think. We just react. And the noise has triggered that. And there's been studies, plenty of studies, that show that people that are exposed to a lot of noise pollution, they usually have a higher level of stress hormones that goes through their bodies. That what professions do people work in? What environments do they work in that exposes them to a lot of noise? Military, hospitals, airlines, for sure. For sure, airlines, definitely. So if the noise is so loud and it triggers our fight or flight nervous system, how can we mitigate that? Because we can't control when it happens, because we're just so programmed to react and we don't think. Before I forget, another way that noise affects us, it affects our sleep. Because now, well, it's always been this way. Sleeping is so important for our health. It's just so important for our bodies, but the lack of sleep is so huge, and the lack of sleep is a huge contributor to our mental health issues. And again, research, because it's because of research I'm able to bring you this information and discuss this topic. Research shows that noise pollution disrupts our sleep, even if we don't realize it. Now, I've been lucky that in my neighborhood, I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood, so I'm not really disrupted at night from sources, because there's not a lot of traffic where I live on my street, because I'm not really I don't really live next to a main road. I live in a subdivision that's away from traffic, and my neighbors are pretty quiet. But there are most of my neighbors have dogs, and I can hear them barking at night. But usually that's if it's a car or someone in the neighborhood that I guess they don't know them, and they bark, and it doesn't bother me, because it lets me know that someone's looking out for us, or maybe it's the dogs that's looking out for us. But if you live in an area where dogs are constantly barking, or there's a lot of traffic, it's definitely going to affect your sleep. And if it does, and you wake up without fully waking up, it can prevent you from going into that deep sleep. That's that important part of the night when you're sleeping. And a lot of times it makes us feel groggy and tired the next day. And you can always tell when someone comes into their jobs and they're just sluggish, they're dragging because they didn't get any sleep. And can you imagine being in that situation day in and day out? It's not good. Not at all. Noise, another thing that noise prohibits, it makes it much harder for us to focus and concentrate and think clearly. our cognitive skills, like reading comprehension and memory, remembering certain things and paying attention. And I know in my situation, I struggle anyway with solving problems, especially if it's a complex problem. I have to really take time to focus on it, to try to figure out the intricate details of the problem, what's being said or what's being asked. But that gets worse if I'm exposed to a lot of noise, especially if I'm in lately I've been going to the library to get some studying in, because library is supposed to be quiet and it's supposed to be the adequate study environment, but not so much anymore because it's louder and the traffic is more. And so when I'm trying to concentrate and really study, that noise there, it's in the way of that. I'm exposed to it. And that noise there is just other people talking, in which historically, when you're in the library, there's always been this unhidden rule that libraries are super quiet and you're supposed to whisper. You're not supposed to say anything that's going to disturb the next person. But there's no law against that. That could be a policy of the library. Lately, people break it, at least where I live. They've been breaking that rule. So the library is not as quiet anymore. So you have other people that's talking, and I've even experienced people playing music loud from their smartphones. I'm hearing music, even if they're wearing headphones, I can still hear music through their headphones. And kids running through this foot traffic, books, pages turning. It becomes disruptive, so it's even harder. It's even harder to concentrate there. And that's a place that's supposed to be quiet historically. But that, I'm just one of those that's sensitive to noise. I may be more sensitive than other people. And what happens is, when some people are really sensitive to noise, if they're privy to anxiety, it kicks in. And it could trigger some past noise trauma that makes them feel more reactive it makes them become more reactive to noise disruption. Noise pollution, those sounds. If you take away something from this episode, remember that what noise pollution is. It's excessive and disruptive sounds, and they are annoying and stressful. Remember that if you take away anything from this episode. So as I close out this episode, this show, hopefully you understand better the science behind it, and showing you how harmful noise pollution really is for our brains and mental health. We will definitely get more deeper into this subject and how it affects us as the episodes continue week in and week out. Tune in every Friday. There's a new episode every Friday that I upload. I upload the episodes on Friday mornings, and I think with the provider that I use, the platform that I use for my podcast shows, that it takes them a few hours to get it out to the different podcast streams, but Fridays is when it goes out. I just say look for it every Friday. If you found this show on one of those streams, you can check back Friday. Or if not, you can always go to my website at cedricblack.com, and I have it posted there as well. So thanks for showing up and checking me out this week. I hope that you learned something valuable, and I hope that I was able to provide something helpful for you, and that maybe you can share it with other people as well. See you next week, and don't forget, Noise does affect us. It does affect us. And in some of us, it affects us. It affects us in negative ways. So I welcome any of your stories and any input. Feel free to send me a message. If there's a question that I can answer, or if there's something that you want me to address that I have not addressed yet, let me know. Thanks again. Oh, and sorry for the noise, but I'm at home in my studio this week, and it may get a little noisy because I'm active, is doing things, and that's what this show is about, noise. So that was some of the noise that we heard. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.